A baby stumbled upon a pregnant German shepherd, barely visible beneath layers of mud. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. This incredible story of resilience, compassion, and an unbreakable bond will touch your heart. If this moves you, don't forget to like, share, and tell us where you're listening from in the comments below. Nestled between dense forests and rolling hills, Pineville was a quiet town where life moved at a gentle pace. It was the kind of place where neighbors knew each other by name, front doors stayed unlocked, and the annual Harvest Festival was the biggest event of the year. For Hannah Marshall, Pineville was more than just a town. It was a sanctuary, a fresh start for her and her son after the storm of their past. Juggling 2 jobs left Hannah exhausted. Mornings at the local diner, evenings at the convenience store. Her hands were always occupied, her mind always racing with worries, bills, the future, and most of all, Noah. At just 5 years old, Noah had eyes like rain-washed stones and a heart too big for his small frame. But there was a sadness in him, a weight that no child should carry. He hadn't spoken a single word in 8 months, ever since the night that shattered their world. The doctors called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma. Hannah called it a broken heart. "Noah, sweetheart, stay where I can see you," she called, while pinning damp laundry to the clothesline. In their small backyard, their modest rental house sat on the edge of town, where the last houses faded into thick wilderness. The looming forest had always made her uneasy. Noah, as always, didn't respond, but he nodded, his face serious as he played among the fallen leaves. He had always been a quiet child, even before the tragedy. Always observing, always feeling things more deeply than others. Their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, often said, "That boy sees things we don't." Mark my words. Perhaps she was right. Noah had an uncanny connection with animals. Stray cats trailed behind him. Birds landed fearlessly at his feet. Once, Hannah had found him sitting motionless in the yard, a wild rabbit nibbling clover from his outstretched hand. 10 more minutes, then lunch, she reminded him as she hung the last towel. The crisp October air smelled of rain, and storm clouds gathered in the distance. Their roof already leaked in 3 places, just another problem she didn't have time to fix. When she turned back, Noah was gone. A wave of panic crashed over her. "Noah." Her voice trembled as she scanned the yard. "Noah." She dropped the laundry basket and ran to the property's edge, her heart pounding. The forest loomed ahead, dark and endless. Then she saw them, tiny footprints in the damp earth leading straight into the trees. A cold dread settled over her. She had warned him never to go into the woods alone. The dangers were too many: steep ravines, the old flooded quarry, wild animals, and in her darkest fears the dangers weren't just natural. "Noah!" she shouted, plunging into the trees. Without hesitation, branches scratched her arms, roots snatched at her ankles, but she didn't stop. The first raindrops began to fall, cold and sharp against her skin. The sky darkened, turning the forest into a maze of shifting shadows. She ran. Her lungs burned, her throat ached from screaming. Terrifying images filled her mind. Noah, lost in the storm. Noah, hurt and unable to call for help. 10 minutes blurred into 20. The rain pounded harder. Her cries turned to ragged sobs. "Please," she whispered, pleading with the universe. "Please, don't take him from me too." Then, a flash of red among the brown and green. Noah's jacket. Hannah sprinted toward it, nearly collapsing in relief. But Noah wasn't alone. He wasn't playing. He wasn't running. He was kneeling in the mud, his tiny hands digging frantically, his face streaked with tears and dirt. "Noah, what? Are you—" The words caught in her throat as she saw it. Half buried in the mud was a large, motionless shape. A dog. A German shepherd, its fur matted with dirt, its body limp. For a terrible moment, Hannah thought it was dead. Then she saw its shallow, labored breaths. Noah's small hands were scraped raw, his nails caked with mud, but he didn't stop. His wide, pleading eyes turned to her, silently begging for help. Noah didn't make a sound, but his message was unmistakable. Help me save her. Hannah dropped to her knees beside him, the wet earth seeping through her jeans. Up close, she could finally see what her son had found, a German shepherd, her once beautiful coat now filthy and matted. But that wasn't all. The dog's belly was swollen, round with life. "She's pregnant," Hannah whispered, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the rain. Horror crept in as realization dawned. Who would do this? Who would bury a pregnant dog and leave her to die? Then her fingers scraped against something hard and unyielding, metal. She dug deeper, tracing the object with her hands, and her stomach turned. A chain. It was wrapped tightly around the dog's neck, anchoring her to something buried even deeper in the mud. Hannah's breath caught. Someone had done this on purpose. "Who did this to you?" she murmured, her voice thick with emotion as she worked to loosen the chain. The dog whimpered, soft, barely audible. It was the first sound she had made. Noah, his fingers coated in mud, stroked her head with a tenderness that made Hannah's throat tighten. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Finally, they managed to free the dog's upper body, but she was still stuck, her lower half trapped beneath the heavy mud. "We need something to dig with," Hannah panted, glancing around frantically. There was nothing but trees, mud, and the relentless downpour. She started to stand, ready to search for a fallen branch or something they could use, but Noah tugged at her sleeve. His wide, panicked eyes weren't on her. They were on the dog's belly. Hannah followed his gaze and her heart dropped. The dog's stomach was contracting. "Oh my God," she whispered, her breath catching. "She's in labor." Fear surged through her. They couldn't deliver puppies here, not in the mud, not in the freezing rain. The mother was too weak, too cold. They needed to get her to safety, now. Determined, Hannah yanked off her jacket and used it to scoop away larger chunks of earth. Noah watched, his hands trembling as she dug with renewed desperation. "Almost there," she gritted out. Then at last, she saw what had kept the dog trapped. Her legs were bound, rusty wire was twisted cruelly around them, cutting so deep into her flesh that Hannah's stomach churned. The chain around her neck was padlocked to a metal stake driven deep into the ground. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Hannah's hands shook. "Who could do something like this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. Beside her, Noah trembled, silent tears streaking through the mud on his face. He placed a small, careful hand on the dog's side, as if trying to comfort her, to share whatever warmth he had left. The dog didn't flinch. She didn't take her eyes off Noah. Hannah swallowed hard and reached for the wire, ignoring the sting as it cut into her own fingers. She tried to loosen it without causing more pain, but it was wound too tightly. "We need something to cut this," she muttered, frantically searching her pockets. Then she remembered. Her keychain had a small multi-tool. It wasn't much, just a tiny pair of wire cutters meant for electrical work, not thick, rusted metal. But it was all they had. With numb fingers, she fumbled for the tool and positioned it over the twisted wire. She squeezed. Nothing. The metal barely budged. "Come on," she hissed, adjusting her grip and trying again. This time the wire groaned under the pressure. It didn't snap, but it gave slightly. The dog whimpered in pain as the wire shifted. "I'm sorry," Hannah whispered, tears mixing with rain as they slid down her face. "I'm so sorry." Noah watched, his small face set in fierce determination. When her grip slipped, sending the tool tumbling toward the mud, he caught it before it could fall. He handed it back to her, their eyes locking. "We can do this," his gaze seemed to say. I know, hers answered. With a deep breath, she went back to work. The first loop of wire snapped. Hannah exhaled sharply, moving to the next. The rain pounded harder, her soaked clothes clinging to her skin, but she didn't stop. The second wire was thicker, twisted multiple times. Her hands were slick with mud and blood. The tool slipped again. Noah caught it. Again. With a final desperate squeeze, the last wire gave way. The dog's legs were free, though they remained deeply wounded, the flesh raw where the wire had bitten into it. Now, only the chain remained. Hannah touched the padlock and immediately knew. Her small tool wouldn't be enough. They weren't done yet. "Help me," Hannah urged, gripping the chain tightly. Noah immediately understood. He stepped beside her, hands grasping the cold, rain-slicked metal. Together, they pulled with all their strength, their feet sliding in the thick mud. Every muscle in Hannah's body strained, but the stake wouldn't budge. A cry of frustration caught in her throat. They were so close. So close. But without removing the chain, they couldn't move the dog. A sharp whimper made her look down. Another contraction rippled through the German shepherd's swollen belly. She let out a low, pain-filled moan. Time was slipping away. Suddenly, Noah released the chain and moved to the dog's head. He stroked her ears gently, his expression unreadable. Then, he pointed at the chain, then at the dog's neck, making a slipping motion with his hands. Realization struck. "You think we can slide it over her head?" Hannah asked. Noah nodded. It was a long shot, but it might work. The dog was painfully thin from neglect, and while the chain was tight, there was a chance it could slip free. "Okay, let's try." Hannah moved carefully, working the chain upward. The metal scraped against the dog's ears, making her whimper softly. "I know, girl," Hannah murmured. "Just a little more." With careful persistence, she eased the chain past the widest part of the dog's skull. One of her ears tore slightly, where the rough metal had scraped it, leaving a thin trickle of blood. But finally, with one last, careful tug, the chain came free. She was unchained. Relief washed over Hannah, but it was fleeting. Though the dog was no longer bound, she still couldn't stand. Her legs, trapped and bloodied for so long, were too weak to hold her. And her contractions were coming harder now, her breathing fast and shallow. "We have to carry her," Hannah said, determination hardening her voice. The dog was large, easily 80 pounds, maybe more, given her pregnancy. Hannah wasn't sure she could lift her alone, but they had to try. She yanked off her flannel shirt, shivering as the cold rain soaked through her thin t-shirt, and quickly knotted the sleeves into a makeshift sling. "This is going to hurt," she warned softly, though she wasn't sure if the dog understood. "But we're getting you out of here." With slow, careful movements, she and Noah worked together, sliding the sling beneath the dog's limp body. The German shepherd whimpered, but didn't struggle. It was as if she trusted them. Hannah swallowed hard and braced herself. "On 3, she told Noah. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. The weight was staggering. Hannah's arms trembled, her back protesting, but she held firm. The rain poured harder, soaking them to the bone, the ground beneath them slick with mud. Noah's small hands clutched the sling tightly, his face pale with strain, but his grip didn't falter. Step by painstaking step, they made their way through the darkened forest. Twice, Hannah's foot slipped, nearly sending them both sprawling, but she managed to stay upright. The dog's body was heavy and motionless in their sling, her eyes barely open, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered. What felt like hours later, Hannah saw it. Home. The back of their house loomed through the trees, a beacon in the storm. Almost there, she gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts. Noah didn't speak, just tightened his grip and pushed forward. They stumbled up the porch steps, Hannah fumbling desperately with the door. When it finally swung open, they carried the dog inside, trailing mud and rainwater across the floor. "The bathroom," she panted. "We need to warm her up." Navigating the narrow hall, they reached the small bathroom and carefully lowered the dog into the tub. She collapsed against the cool porcelain, utterly exhausted, her sides rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. Now, in the bright bathroom light, Hannah could see just how dire her condition was. Beneath the layers of caked-on mud, the German shepherd's coat was dull and patchy. Her ribs stood out sharply beneath her skin. The deep, raw wounds around her legs, where the wire had cut in, were swollen and infected. But despite it all, her amber eyes still held a spark. "You're safe now," Hannah whispered, twisting the faucet handle. Warm water rushed over her hands. "We'll take care of you." Noah knelt beside the tub, placing a small, careful hand on the dog's head. The German shepherd's tail gave a faint, weak thump against the tub. A tiny gesture of trust. Tears blurred Hannah's vision as she began rinsing away the mud. As she gently wiped the dirt from the dog's neck, something metallic caught the light. A tag. With careful fingers, she brushed away the grime, revealing a small, weathered metal disc hanging from a worn collar. "She has an owner," Hannah murmured, turning it over, expecting to find an address or a phone number. But there was only a single word. "Luna." Hannah whispered it. "Luna?" The dog's ears twitched faintly at the sound. "Is that your name, girl?" Hannah asked softly. The dog blinked slowly. Luna. After everything, she still had a name. Luna's tail gave the faintest thump, and for the first time in months, Noah's face lit up with a genuine smile. He pointed at the dog, then up at the sky, tracing a slow circle with his finger. "The moon," Hannah murmured, recognizing the meaning in his silent gesture. "Luna means moon." She ran her fingers gently over the dog's damp fur. "That's a beautiful name." They continued rinsing the grime from Luna's coat, revealing more of the damage hidden beneath. But before they could finish, the dog tensed suddenly, a strained whimper escaping her throat. Her belly tightened again in another contraction. It was a long shot, but it might work. The dog was painfully thin from neglect, and while the chain was tight, there was a chance it could slip free. "Okay, let's try." Hannah moved carefully, working the chain upward. The metal scraped against the dog's ears, making her whimper softly. "I know, girl," Hannah murmured. "Just a little more." With careful persistence, she eased the chain past the widest part of the dog's skull. One of her ears tore slightly, where the rough metal had scraped it, leaving a thin trickle of blood. But finally, with one last, careful tug, the chain came free. She was unchained. Relief washed over Hannah, but it was fleeting. Though the dog was no longer bound, she still couldn't stand. Her legs, trapped and bloodied for so long, were too weak to hold her, and her contractions were coming harder now, her breathing fast and shallow. "We have to carry her," Hannah said, determination hardening her voice. The dog was large, easily 80 pounds, maybe more, given her pregnancy. Hannah wasn't sure she could lift her alone, but they had to try. She yanked off her flannel shirt, shivering as the cold rain soaked through her thin t-shirt, and quickly knotted the sleeves into a makeshift sling. "This is going to hurt," she warned softly, though she wasn't sure if the dog understood. "But we're getting you out of here." With slow, careful movements, she and Noah worked together, sliding the sling beneath the dog's limp body. The German shepherd whimpered, but didn't struggle. It was as if she trusted them. Hannah swallowed hard and braced herself. "On 3, she told Noah. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. The weight was staggering. Hannah's arms trembled, her back protesting, but she held firm. The rain poured harder, soaking them to the bone, the ground beneath them slick with mud. Noah's small hands clutched the sling tightly, his face pale with strain, but his grip didn't falter. Step by painstaking step, they made their way through the darkened forest. Twice, Hannah's foot slipped, nearly sending them both sprawling, but she managed to stay upright. The dog's body was heavy and motionless in their sling, her eyes barely open, but she was alive, and that was all that mattered. What felt like hours later, Hannah saw it. Home. The back of their house loomed through the trees, a beacon in the storm. Almost there, she gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts. Noah didn't speak, just tightened his grip and pushed forward. They stumbled up the porch steps, Hannah fumbling desperately with the door. When it finally swung open, they carried the dog inside, trailing mud and rainwater across the floor. "The bathroom," she panted. "We need to warm her up." Navigating the narrow hall, they reached the small bathroom and carefully lowered the dog into the tub. She collapsed against the cool porcelain, utterly exhausted, her sides rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. Now, in the bright bathroom light, Hannah could see just how dire her condition was. Beneath the layers of caked-on mud, the German shepherd's coat was dull and patchy. Her ribs stood out sharply beneath her skin. The deep, raw wounds around her legs, where the wire had cut in, were swollen and infected. But despite it all, her amber eyes still held a spark. "You're safe now," Hannah whispered, twisting the faucet handle. Warm water rushed over her. "Hands. We'll take care of you." Noah knelt beside the tub, placing a small, careful hand on the dog's head. The German shepherd's tail gave a faint, weak thump against the tub. A tiny gesture of trust. Tears blurred Hannah's vision as she began rinsing away the mud. As she gently wiped the dirt from the dog's neck, something metallic caught the light. A tag. With careful fingers, she brushed away the grime, revealing a small, weathered metal disc hanging from a worn collar. "She has an owner," Hannah murmured, turning it over, expecting to find an address or a phone number. But there was only a single word. "Luna." Hannah whispered it. "Luna?" The dog's ears twitched faintly at the sound. "Is that your name, girl?" Hannah asked softly. The dog blinked slowly. Luna. After everything, she still had a name. Luna's tail gave the faintest thump, and for the first time in months, Noah's face lit up with a genuine smile. He pointed at the dog, then up at the sky, tracing a slow circle with his finger. "The moon," Hannah murmured, recognizing the meaning in his silent gesture. "Luna means moon." She ran her fingers gently over the dog's damp fur. "That's a beautiful name." They continued rinsing the grime from Luna's coat, revealing more of the damage hidden beneath. But before they could finish, the dog tensed suddenly, a strained whimper escaping her throat. Her belly tightened again in another contraction. Hannah's pulse quickened. "The puppies," she breathed, fear gripping her chest. "They're coming now." She had helped deliver kittens once, years ago, but never puppies. Certainly not in a situation this dire. "We need a vet." But Pineville was a small town, and the only veterinary clinic was on the far side of town. With the storm raging outside and her gas tank nearly empty, getting there might not even be an option. Noah tugged at her sleeve and pointed toward the phone hanging on the wall. "You're right," Hannah said, rushing to grab it. "We'll call for help." Her fingers trembled as she dialed the Pineville Veterinary Clinic, silently praying someone would answer despite the late hour and the storm. After 4 rings, a deep, gruff voice picked up. "Pineville Vet." "Dr. Martinez?" Relief flooded her. "It's Hannah Marshall. I have an emergency. We found a pregnant German shepherd in the woods. She was buried in mud, tied up with wire, and she's in labor." There was a brief silence before his voice sharpened. How far apart are the contractions? I'm not sure, Hannah admitted. But they're coming fast, maybe every few minutes. Can you bring her in? Hannah glanced toward the window, watching the rain pound against the glass. Roads were likely flooded, winds howling strong enough to knock down trees, and she barely had enough gas in her car to make the trip. No, she said firmly. Not safely. Not in this storm. A long pause. Then, give me your address. I'm coming to you. A breath of relief escaped her lips. She quickly gave him the information. Thank you. Thank you so much. Keep her warm, Dr. Martinez instructed. As still as possible. Don't move her unless absolutely necessary. I'll be there as soon as I can. Hannah hung up and hurried back to the bathroom. Noah was still kneeling beside Luna, his small hand resting on her head. The dog's eyes barely fluttered open, her breathing shallow. Help is coming, Hannah promised, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. Just hold on a little longer, Luna. They continued washing the mud from her fur, and the more they cleaned, the worse her condition appeared. She was severely malnourished, her ribs stark against her frail frame. Scars crisscrossed her body, old and new alike. Whoever had left her like this had meant for her to suffer. Noah worked quietly, his fingers careful as he wiped around Luna's ears and face. The dog leaned into his touch, as if sensing that this child, this quiet, gentle soul, was safe. A sharp contraction racked her body, making her whimper. You're doing great, girl, Hannah murmured, stroking her side. Just keep breathing. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The contractions grew stronger, closer together. Hannah bit her lip. What if Dr. Martinez didn't arrive in time? She had no real idea how to deliver puppies, and Luna was already so weak. A sudden knock at the door startled her. Noah's wide eyes flicked to hers. That must be him, Hannah said, pushing herself up. Her legs ached from kneeling, but she rushed to the front door and yanked it open. A man in his 50s stood on the porch, soaked to the skin. Raindrops clung to his salt and pepper hair, and his glasses were speckled with moisture. A large medical bag was slung over his shoulder. Thank you for coming, Hannah said, stepping aside to let him in. Dr. Martinez nodded briskly, already, moving toward the soft whimpers coming from down the hall. How long since you found her? He asked as he walked. About 2 hours, Hannah answered, following close behind. She was chained to a stake. Someone left her to die. His jaw clenched at her words. When he stepped into the bathroom and saw Luna lying in the tub, his expression darkened further. Noah remained by her side, his small fingers stroking her damp fur. He looked up at the vet, silent but expectant. Can you save her? Dr. Martinez set his bag on the floor and knelt beside them. Hello there, young man, he said, offering Noah a kind nod. You've been taking very good care of this mama, haven't you? Noah nodded solemnly. The vet's hands moved with practiced efficiency as he began examining Luna. The wire caused significant damage, he murmured grimly. There's infection setting in and she's dangerously dehydrated. Hannah swallowed hard. But you can help her, right? Dr. Martinez didn't answer right away. He continued his assessment, checking her gums, her pulse, her breathing. Finally, he met Hannah's gaze. I'll do everything I can, he said, his voice steady but serious. But you need to understand, she's in critical condition. And the puppies, they're at risk too. Noah's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't speak, but his grip on Luna's fur tightened slightly. She's made it this far, Hannah said, her voice thick with emotion. She's a fighter, Dr. Martinez nodded, already reaching into his bag. Then let's give her all the help we can. He worked quickly, his hands steady as he prepared a series of injections. Will she make it? She whispered, not wanting Noah to hear the fear in her voice. Dr. Martinez's face was grim. The next few hours will be critical. She's already weak, and labor is hard on even the healthiest dogs. Noah hadn't moved from Luna's side. His hand never left her fur, his touch constant and reassuring. Luna's eyes fluttered open every so often, finding the boy's face as if drawing strength from his presence. Dr. Martinez exhaled, scanning the cramped bathroom. "We need a proper birthing space," he said. "This tub isn't ideal." Hannah nodded. "The living room. I'll get clean blankets." As she rushed to gather supplies, the vet examined Luna's legs again. His expression darkened. "These wounds are deep," he muttered. "And they're not fresh. Someone left her like this for days, maybe longer." Hannah's stomach churned at the thought. Together, they lifted Luna using the now clean flannel shirt as a makeshift sling. The dog whimpered as they moved her, another contraction racking her frail body. "Easy, girl," Dr. Martinez murmured. "Almost there." They laid her gently on the blankets Hannah had arranged in the living room. Outside, the storm continued to rage, rain lashing against the windows. Inside, another storm was building. "The first puppy is coming," Dr. Martinez announced. He positioned himself at Luna's side. "Most dogs can handle labor on their own, but given her condition, I may have to assist." Noah sat cross-legged beside Luna's head, his hand never leaving her. Luna pushed, her body trembling with effort. Minutes passed, stretching endlessly. Then, Dr. Martinez's brow furrowed. "She's too exhausted," he said. "She doesn't have the strength to push." Hannah's heart pounded. "What do we do?" His voice was firm. "We help her." Dr. Martinez moved swiftly, wiping away the delicate membrane from the newborn puppy's face before gently massaging its tiny chest, urging it to take its first breath. For a long, heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, the puppy released a fragile, quivering gasp. A second later, a faint squeak escaped its tiny body, barely audible over the storm raging outside. Noah's face lit up. It was a real smile, pure, unguarded, and so full of joy that it took Hannah's breath away. Tears stung her eyes. It was the first time he had smiled like that since the accident. As if for the first time in months, the ice around him had started to melt. Dr. Martinez carefully placed the newborn into Hannah's hands. "Keep her warm while we deliver the rest," he instructed. Hannah cradled the tiny creature, overwhelmed by the miracle she held. The puppy, still damp and fragile, nestled against her palm, instinctively searching for warmth. For the next 2 hours, Luna fought to bring the rest of her litter into the world. Her body, weakened and injured, trembled with the effort. Dr. Martinez had to assist more than usual, guiding each puppy as they arrived. But despite her exhaustion, despite everything she had endured, Luna didn't give up. Then came the 5th puppy. The moment it emerged, Hannah knew something was wrong. It wasn't moving. "No," she whispered, her stomach twisting as Dr. Martinez sprang into action. He rubbed the puppy's tiny chest, cleared its airways, and even gave it the smallest puffs of breath. Nothing. His shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice heavy with regret. But Noah refused to accept it. Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and took the lifeless puppy from the vet's hands. Hannah almost protested, not wanting him to experience another painful loss. But something in his face made her pause. Noah held the puppy close, pressing it gently against his chest. He bent his head, his lips just inches from its tiny ear. Then, in a voice that was hoarse from months of silence, so soft it was nearly swallowed by the storm, he whispered, "Live, please, live." The room felt frozen in time. Dr. Martinez stopped moving. Hannah barely dared to breathe. For a moment there was nothing. Then, a twitch. A faint tremor ran through the puppy's tiny body, once, twice. Then, with a desperate, shuddering gasp, its minuscule chest rose. A heartbeat later, it released a weak, high-pitched squeak. Dr. Martinez let out a stunned breath. "My God," he murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. I don't know how, but you saved it. Noah lifted his gaze, his eyes locking onto his mother's. And in that moment, Hannah saw something she hadn't in so long, something fragile but unmistakable. Hope. Her throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Her son, her beautiful, silent son, had found his voice again. Minutes later, the last puppy arrived, small but unexpectedly strong. Once all 6 had been cleaned and checked, they were placed beside Luna. Despite her exhaustion, she immediately began licking and nuzzling each one, her motherly instincts undiminished. Dr. Martinez exhaled, still looking slightly shaken. 6 healthy puppies, he murmured. Considering everything she's been through, it's more than I could have hoped for. But Hannah wasn't looking at the puppies. She was looking at Noah. Hannah held Noah close, her thoughts racing. Someone was coming for Luna tomorrow, someone who might not be who they claimed to be. She had to be ready. Moving carefully so as not to wake Noah, she reached for her phone and sent a message to Officer Reyes, explaining the situation and asking her to stop by before 9 a.m. Next, she texted Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor, to see if she could watch Noah for a few hours, in the morning if needed. Only then did Hannah allow herself to close her eyes, though sleep felt impossible. No matter what happened tomorrow, one thing was certain. She wouldn't let Luna go without a fight. Noah's face lit up with pride as Dr. Martinez praised him for taking such good care of Luna. He had been shadowing the vet all afternoon, watching every move with fascination. Your son has a real gift with animals, Dr. Martinez observed, watching as Noah carefully offered Luna a bowl of water. Has he ever thought about becoming a veterinarian? Hannah gave a soft, bittersweet smile. He's only 5, she said. And until yesterday, he hadn't spoken a word in 8 months. The vet looked at her in surprise. May I ask why? She hesitated, then decided there was no reason to hide the truth. There was an accident, she said quietly, making sure Noah couldn't hear. My husband, Noah's father, was killed. Noah was in the car. He saw everything. The memories crashed over her like a wave, but she took a steadying breath before continuing. After that, he just stopped speaking. The doctors call it selective mutism caused by trauma. Dr. Martinez's face softened with understanding, and yesterday, he spoke. For Luna. Hannah nodded, wiping away a tear. 2 words. The first I've heard since the funeral. The vet glanced at Noah, who was now lying on his stomach beside Luna, watching her with quiet devotion. There's something special between them, he said. I've seen animals help people heal in ways science can't explain. Maybe Luna needed Noah just as much as he needed her. That thought comforted Hannah as she prepared dinner. She made simple sandwiches, and once again, they ate in the living room, unwilling to leave Luna and her puppies. Later, Noah curled up beside Luna, his small hand resting against her side as he drifted off to sleep. Hannah sat nearby, watching them in the dim light. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of peace. Then the phone rang. The sharp sound shattered the quiet, making Hannah jump. She grabbed it quickly before it could wake Noah. Hello? She said, stepping into the kitchen. Hannah Marshall? The voice was deep, authoritative, completely unfamiliar. Yes, that's me. This is Sergeant James Keller with the State Police, K-9 Unit. I understand you found a German Shepherd yesterday. A chill ran down Hannah's spine. How did he know about Luna? She had only reported it to Officer Reyes that morning. Yes, she answered cautiously. She was abandoned in the woods. Badly injured. There was a pause. Miss Marshall, I need to inform you that the dog you found is police property. Her name is Raya, and she's a trained K-9. Hannah's grip on the phone tightened. That's impossible. Her tag says Luna, and she wasn't just lost. Someone tied her up and left her to die. No police department would do that to one of their own dogs. Silence. A long one. When Keller spoke again, his tone was sharper. Ms. Marshall, I can't discuss details over the phone. I'll be coming by tomorrow morning to collect the dog and her puppies. No, Hannah said, the word escaping before she even thought about it. No? His voice hardened. This dog was abandoned, tortured. My son found her and saved her life. She's ours now. Ms. Marshall, he said, his patience thinning, that dog is state property. Keeping her would be considered theft, a felony. I strongly advise you to comply. Fear and anger surged inside her. I want proof, she said firmly. Documentation that she belongs to your department. And I want an explanation for why she was chained up and left to die. I'll bring the paperwork tomorrow, Keller said, his voice clipped. Be ready to hand over the dog and puppies by 9 a.m. Then the line went dead. Hannah stood in the dim kitchen, phone still in her hand, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She picked up her phone and called Dr. Martinez. Despite the late hour, he answered on the third ring. Hannah? He sounded immediately alert. Something's wrong, she said. A man claiming to be with the State Police K-9 unit just called. He says Luna belongs to them and that he's coming to take her in the morning. That doesn't make sense, Dr. Martinez said instantly. Why would a police dog be abandoned like that? Did he explain? No. He refused to talk about it over the phone, just said he'd bring paperwork tomorrow. There was a long pause before the vet spoke again. I don't like this. Me neither. At the very least, Luna, or Raya, if that's really her name, isn't fit to be moved. She needs at least another week of rest and medication. And the puppies? They're far too young to be separated from her. Will you tell him that? Hannah asked. Maybe he'll listen to a vet. I'll do better than that, Dr. Martinez said, firmly. I'll be there when he arrives. No one's taking that dog anywhere until we get some answers. Relief flooded through her. Thank you, she murmured. I don't know what's going on, but this doesn't feel right. After hanging up, Hannah knew she couldn't just sit and wait for morning. She needed answers now. Moving quietly so she wouldn't wake Noah, she grabbed her laptop and settled onto the couch where she could still see Luna and the puppies. Her first search, Sergeant James Keller, State Police K-9 unit. Nothing. No news articles. No mention on the official state police website. Not necessarily suspicious, but not reassuring either. Next, she searched police dog abandoned. The results were heartbreaking. Stories of retired K-9s left in shelters, cases of neglect. But none of them matched Luna's situation. Frowning, she tried something else. German Shepherd military tag Luna. This time something came up, articles about military working dogs. One caught her eye, detailing how certain specialized units used acronyms to name their dogs. And Luna. It wasn't just a name. It stood for loyalty under necessary aggression. Military, not police. Hannah's pulse quickened. Military working. Dogs were highly valuable, sometimes transferred to police units after service. But they were never simply abandoned. Not unless someone wanted to hide something. She was so lost in her research that she didn't notice Noah waking up until he appeared beside her, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Hey, sweetie, she whispered, quickly shutting the laptop. You should be asleep. Noah pointed to Luna, then made a questioning gesture. She's fine, Hannah assured him. Just sleeping. Satisfied, he climbed onto the couch beside her, curling up against her side. Within minutes, he was asleep again. Hannah held him close, staring into the dark. She didn't know what was coming tomorrow, but she knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't let anyone take Luna. Hannah wouldn't let them take Luna, not without a fight, not after everything they'd been through to save her. As she drifted into an uneasy sleep, she could have sworn she heard Luna whimper. Not in pain this time, but as if she were warning her. Do you think Sergeant Keller is telling the truth? About Luna being a police dog, or is something more sinister going on? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hannah woke with a start, momentarily disoriented. It took her a second to realize she was on the couch, not in her bed. Dawn light streamed through the curtains, casting long shadows across the living room. Noah was still curled against her side, his small body warm, his breathing steady. She glanced at her watch. 6:15 a.m. Less than 3 hours until Sergeant Keller arrived. Carefully, she eased herself off the couch without waking Noah and crossed the room to check on Luna. The German Shepherd was already awake, her amber eyes tracking Hannah's movements. Her 6 puppies nursed contentedly, tiny paws kneading at her belly. "Morning, girl," Hannah murmured, kneeling beside her. Luna's tail thumped weakly against the blankets, a small but deeply trusting gesture. Hannah checked the bandages on Luna's legs. The wounds still looked raw and painful, but there was no fresh bleeding. The antibiotics seemed to be working. "You're not going anywhere," Hannah promised, stroking Luna's head. "Not until we get real answers." Luna licked Hannah's hand, her gaze steady. Hannah's phone buzzed, a message from Officer Reyes, on duty at 8. "We'll stop by before your visitor arrives." Relief flooded through her, having a legitimate police officer present would make a difference, especially if Sergeant Keller wasn't who he claimed to be. Another text followed, this time from Mrs. Peterson, confirming she could take Noah if needed. Everything was lining up. But the anxiety in Hannah's gut refused to settle. She moved into the kitchen, started the coffee maker, and tried to think through the possibilities. What if Keller was telling the truth and had legal rights to Luna? What if he brought backup? What if... She turned to see Noah standing in the doorway, his hair a mess, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning, sweetie," she said, forcing a smile. "Did you sleep okay?" Noah nodded, then pointed toward the living room, his face questioning. "Luna's fine," Hannah reassured him. "The puppies too, they're all doing great." Relief softened his features. He went to the fridge, tugging the door open and pointing inside. "Hungry?" Hannah asked, chuckling. "Let's make some breakfast. We've got a big day ahead." As they ate their cereal, she debated whether to tell Noah about Keller. Her instinct was to protect him from unnecessary worry. But after everything they'd been through, he deserved to know. "Noah," she said carefully, "someone's coming to talk to us about Luna today." Noah's spoon froze mid-air. His eyes went wide. "This person thinks Luna might have been a police dog," she explained, "like the ones that work with officers. He wants to talk to us about her." Noah's face darkened. He shook his head hard, then pointed from Luna to himself. "I know," Hannah said gently. "She's yours, ours. And I'm not going to let anyone take her unless I know it's the right thing to do. That's why Dr. Martinez is coming back this morning, and Officer Reyes too." Noah hesitated, then slid off his chair and went to sit beside Luna, placing a small protective hand on her head. Hannah's heart clenched. In just 2 days, Luna had become part of their world. She'd drawn Noah out of his silence. The thought of losing her now was unbearable. At 8:15 a.m. sharp, a police cruiser pulled up outside. "Thank you for coming," Hannah said as she let Officer Reyes inside. "Of course," Reyes replied, her expression serious. "I did some digging after your text. There is a Sergeant James Keller with the state police, but he's not with the K-9 unit. He works in a different division entirely." A chill ran down Hannah's spine. "So he lied?" "Not necessarily," Reyes cautioned. "He could be on a special assignment, or maybe there's a simple explanation. But it's definitely worth being careful." They moved into the living room. Noah was still beside Luna, his little body acting as a shield. Reyes knelt, examining Luna and her puppies. "She's looking better than yesterday," she noted. but she's still in no shape to be moved. That's what Dr. Martinez said too, Hannah agreed. He should be here any minute. As if on cue, a knock sounded at the door. Hannah opened it, and her stomach dropped. It wasn't Dr. Martinez. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp uniform stood on the porch. His face was unreadable, his stance rigid. "Ms. Marshall?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Sergeant James Keller, State Police." He flashed a badge, but too fast for Hannah to properly examine it. Her pulse quickened. "You're early," she said, not stepping aside. "I prefer punctuality," he replied smoothly. "May I come in? I've brought the documentation we discussed." Hannah hesitated. "Officer Reyes from Pineville PD is here as well," she said, watching his reaction. If Keller was surprised, he didn't show it. He simply nodded and followed her inside. Reyes stood as they entered, her hand instinctively moving to rest on her service belt. "Sergeant Keller," she greeted him coolly. "I wasn't aware the state police had an interest in this case." Keller's eyes narrowed slightly. "This isn't a case, officer. It's a matter of retrieving state property." His gaze flicked to Luna. For a split second, something passed over his face, recognition maybe. But there was something else too. Something like guilt. "You said you have documentation," Hannah prompted, stepping protectively between Keller and Luna. "Yes," he said, pulling a folder from his jacket. The dog, designation K9R47, named Raya, was part of a specialized training program. She didn't meet the requirements and was scheduled for rehoming. There was a miscommunication that led to her temporary misplacement. "Misplacement?" Hannah repeated, incredulous. "She was chained to a stake and left for dead. She nearly died. Her puppies nearly died." Keller's face remained unreadable. "An unfortunate situation. There's an internal investigation underway, but I can't discuss the details." Another knock at the door. This time, it was Dr. Martinez. Hannah quickly explained the situation in hushed tones before leading him inside. Tension coiled thick in the air. Noah had pressed himself even closer to Luna, his fingers curled into her fur. The German shepherd was fully alert now, ears forward, gaze locked onto Keller. Keller barely spared the vet a glance. "Dr. Martinez," he acknowledged, "is the dog fit for transport?" Dr. Martinez's answer was instant. "Absolutely not. She has severe wounds, active infection, and is nursing 6 puppies. Moving her now would put all of them at serious risk." Keller frowned. "I've brought appropriate transport." "With all due respect, Sergeant," Martinez cut in, "as the attending vet, I cannot ethically approve her removal." Hannah barely breathed as Officer Reyes flipped through the folder Keller had handed over. Her frown deepened. "Sergeant Keller," she said slowly, "these forms don't specify which unit this dog was assigned to." Noah had been silent throughout the tense exchange, but now he suddenly stood up. His small face was set with a fierce determination that made all the adults fall quiet. He pointed first at Luna, then at the wounds on her legs, and finally at Keller. His message was unmistakable. "You did this to her." For the first time, Keller's composure slipped. His mouth opened as if to deny it, but he hesitated. A flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossed his face before he forced himself back under control. "The boy doesn't understand the situation," Keller said stiffly. "I think he understands perfectly," Hannah countered, stepping closer to her son. "Luna was abused, intentionally hurt and left to die. And for some reason, you're desperate to get her back before we figure out why." Keller's eyes hardened. "Ms. Marshall, I've been patient, but my orders are clear. That dog is coming with me today, one way or another." Hannah's breath caught. "Are you threatening us?" Officer Reyes demanded, her voice sharp. Before Keller could answer, a low, deep growl rumbled through the room. Everyone froze. Luna, despite her injuries, had lifted her head. Her lips curled back, revealing sharp teeth. She wasn't growling at Hannah. She wasn't growling at Noah. She wasn't even growling at Officer Reyes. Her gaze was locked onto Keller. The tension in the room thickened. Hannah's pulse pounded. "She recognizes you," she said slowly, realization dawning. "And she's terrified of you." Keller's hand twitched toward his hip, toward his weapon. Officer Reyes noticed instantly. She shifted, her own hand resting openly on her service pistol. "I wouldn't," she warned. Her voice was calm but firm. "Sergeant, I suggest we take a step back and handle this properly. If this dog truly belongs to the state, there are protocols to follow. Dr. Martinez has already stated that moving her now would put her health at risk. We should reconvene when she's medically cleared for transport." Keller's jaw tightened. He stood rigid, weighing his options. Finally, after a long, tense pause, he gave a tight nod. "Fine. 1 week. But I'll be filing reports with your superiors. Officer Reyes and Ms. Marshall, do not attempt to relocate the dog. That would be considered theft of government property." With that, he turned and strode out of the house, his posture stiff with barely contained anger. As soon as the door shut behind him, Hannah exhaled shakily. Luna's growl faded, but she remained watchful, her eyes still fixed on the door as if expecting Keller to return at any moment. "That man is hiding something," Dr. Martinez muttered, echoing what they were all thinking. Officer Reyes nodded grimly. "Those papers looked official, but something's not right. I'm going to make some calls, see what I can find out about this specialized training program he mentioned." "Thank you," Hannah said, her voice full of gratitude. I can't believe someone would do this to her." She gestured at Luna's bandaged legs. "Chain her up. Abandon her. Leave her to die with her puppies. It's inhuman." Dr. Martinez sighed. "I've seen cruelty before, but this feels different, more calculated." Noah had returned to Luna's side, his small hand stroking her fur soothingly. She had calmed, but her watchful gaze never left the door. Hannah exhaled, repeating Keller's words in her mind. 1 week. That wasn't much time. "I'll do everything I can to find answers," Officer Reyes promised. "In the meantime, document everything. Luna's condition, her recovery, any changes. If this turns into a legal battle, you'll want records." After Officer Reyes and Dr. Martinez left with promises to return the next day, Hannah sat beside Noah and Luna, her mind racing. "We're going to figure this out," she vowed. "Whatever Keller is hiding, we'll find it." Noah looked up at her, then leaned down and whispered something into Luna's ear. His voice was soft, but clear enough for Hannah to hear. "We'll protect you." 3 words. 3 precious words that took Hannah's breath away. Her son was speaking again, and it was Luna who had brought him back. The rest of the day passed in a blur, caring for Luna and her puppies, answering calls from Officer Reyes with updates on her investigation, trying to keep things normal for Noah. By evening, exhaustion weighed heavy on Hannah, but she refused to rest. Not yet. She waited until Noah had fallen asleep beside Luna, then grabbed her laptop. Last night, she had searched for military working dogs, hoping for a clue about Luna. But she had found nothing that explained Keller's obsession with getting her back. Tonight, she took a different approach. Instead of searching for the dog, she searched for Sergeant James Keller. For hours, she combed through public records, news archives, social media, and then, finally, she found something. A 3-year-old newspaper article about a military contractor called Cerberus Security Solutions. The article focused on the company's lucrative government contracts, but one detail made Hannah's blood run cold: in the IT. Accompanying photo among the company's leadership team stood a younger James Keller. His title, Director of Special Projects. Hannah's heart pounded. He's not just a police officer, he's private sector. Or he was. She dug deeper. Cerberus, security specialized in enhanced canine training for military and law enforcement. Their website was full of impressive-sounding jargon, phrases like next-generation capabilities and specialized sensory development. And then, finally, buried in a press release from 2 years ago, she found something. A single, cryptic reference to Project Moonlight, a classified collaboration between Cerberus and an unnamed government agency. The goal? To develop canines with extraordinary sensory abilities for special operations. Hannah's breath caught. Moonlight. Luna. It couldn't be a coincidence. Her phone rang, jolting her. It was Officer Reyes. "Sorry for calling so late," the officer said, without preamble. "But I found something you need to know. The K9 unit has no record of a dog designated K9R47. In fact, they've never used that designation system." Hannah's pulse quickened. "And Keller?" "He's been on administrative leave for the past 6 months." Her stomach twisted. "So he lied about everything." "Looks that way," Reyes confirmed. "I've reported it up the chain, but to be honest, I don't know how much help we'll get. Keller still has friends in the department. And without knowing what we're up against—" "I think I do," Hannah whispered. She quickly explained everything she had discovered about Cerberus security and Project Moonlight. A long silence followed. Then Reyes spoke, her voice grave. "Hannah, be careful. If you're right, if this is about some classified military project, these people don't play by the rules. They won't just give up." Hannah swallowed hard. A chill ran through her. "I know," she admitted, "but neither will I." She hung up and turned back to the living room. Noah and Luna were curled up together, the puppies nestled between them. The sight filled Hannah with new resolve. Whatever Luna had been a part of, whatever had been done to her, it was over now. She was family. Noah lowered his head, but Hannah could tell he was pleased by the compliment. "Dr. Martinez," she said, once Noah had returned to Luna's side, "what do you know about military programs that train dogs for specialized purposes?" The vet looked momentarily surprised. "Not much beyond what you might see in the news. Why?" Hannah explained what she had uncovered the night before. Keller's ties to Cerberus security, the elusive Project Moonlight, and the glaring inconsistencies in his story. Dr. Martinez's brow furrowed. "I've heard whispers about private contractors taking extreme measures with animal training, techniques that would never pass ethical veterinary standards. But I didn't realize it was happening this close to home." "What kind of techniques?" Hannah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. The vet hesitated. "There are humane ways to train working dogs, positive reinforcement, shaping behaviors based on their instincts. But there are also shortcuts, drugs designed to enhance sensory perception, harsh conditioning methods, even surgical alterations. In extreme cases." A wave of nausea washed over Hannah. Could this explain Luna's injuries? The chain? The embedded wire? "It's possible," Dr. Martinez admitted grimly. "Or it could have been punishment for not meeting their expectations. German Shepherds are highly intelligent, deeply intuitive animals. If she resisted their training or failed their tests, he didn't need to finish." The image of Luna discarded like an obsolete tool, her puppies viewed as nothing more than a complication, filled Hannah with anger. "What can we do?" she asked. Dr. Martinez pondered the question. "We need proof, concrete evidence that can't be dismissed as an accident or a rogue trainer. And we need allies, people with the authority, to intervene. Officer Reyes is trying, but she's just one cop in a small-town department.